Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about finding the slope from a graphed line. So this should be a review. You have the interactive notebook paper with you, so follow along as we go over this. So the first thing you want to do is when you have a line is you want to find 2 points. So here they happen to give us 2 points. So we're going to connect the 2 points on the line to form a right triangle. So you want to make sure that you're coming down on the actual lines. You don't want to draw a triangle like this. A lot of people try and do that. You don't want to do that. Let me erase that. You want a right triangle. So you want to make sure that it's following the lines. So you want to count the length of the rise and the run. Remember, that's also the change in y over the change in x. So if I look at this, I will see that from here to here is 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, you're counting squares, not lines. And then to go across is 1, 2. And you want a ratio of the y, the change in y, to the change in x. So my change in y is 4, and my change in x is 2. Now it says simplify if necessary, so we can simplify that 2 over 1. Now we want to determine whether it's positive or negative. There's 2 ways of doing that. One way you can do it is you can say from this point I went down 4, so that was minus 4. And then I went to the right 2, so that's positive 2. So I have negative 4 over 2, or negative 2 over 1. If you did the triangle the opposite direction, you do the rise first. So you're going to start at this point and you're going to go up. Well, that's positive 4, but then you're going to go backwards 2, so that's negative 2. So again, you have 4 over negative 2, which is the same thing as 2 over negative 1. And we talked before that those two are actually equal. The negative sign can go at the top or the bottom of the ratio as long as there's just one of them. Another way of doing it is just finding the slope. The ratio is 2 over 1, and then to determine which direction it's going. So if it's going upward, remember from slope dude, it's going to be positive. And if it's going downward, it's going to be negative. So make sure you have that filled out on your interactive notebook. Now, from an equation, if we have an equation that's written in y equals mx plus b form, we learned yesterday that the slope is m and the y-intercept is b. So if I look at my equation over here, I have y equals negative 4x plus 9. So if I pretend it's y equals mx plus b, I know that my m has to be the negative 4 because that's what's in front of the x, and b is 9, positive 9. The sign goes with it. Now, how do I make this slope a ratio? Because slope has to be a ratio. Well, you can take any whole number and put it over 1. So we can say put a 1 in the denominator, or put it over 1, whatever works for you. Okay, so let's go through and we're going to practice some. I'm going to find some here. So we want to write an equation for the graph. So we need 2 things. We need the initial value and we need the rate of change. So remember that rate of change is the slope. Now, initial value is the same thing as y-intercept. It's where x equals 0. So you can just look at this. You don't have to copy these down. Just look. So if I look at this graph, the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. So I'm going to look here, and I see that it crosses at +1. So that's going to be +1. Now my slope, I'm going to pick 2 points. So I'm going to look for points that cross. So I'm going to use the y-intercept for 1 and say, well, that doesn't cross at an intersection. That one doesn't. This one does. I'm going to draw my right triangle. And then I'm going to go from point to point. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to go down. So that's -2. And then I'm going to go to the right 3. So my slope is -2 over +3. Now, if I want to write my equation, remember it's y equals mx plus b. So y stays the same. My slope is -2/3. My x stays the same. And then my b is +1. Notice that every equation has an x and a y in it. It doesn't change. Okay, now you try this one. So pause it. Figure out what is the initial value, or the y-intercept, that's also b. And what is the rate of change or slope? Then give the equation a line. So pause it first, and then when you think you have it, play it back. Okay, so you can pick any 2 points. I'm going to pick this one here, and I think I'll pick this one here. Draw your right triangle. I'm going to do the slope first, then I'll do the y-intercept. So this, from here to here, is +3 because I'm going up. And then I'm going to the right 2. So both of them are positive. My line is going up, so that says it's positive. So my rise, be careful, you always do rise first. So rise is 3 and run is 2, positive. Now, my y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, and that crosses it right here. It's 3. So I'm going to plug that in my equation. Y equals 3/2 x plus 3. Okay, let's try the next one. Same thing. Pause it, find the equation of a line, and then come back and see if you got it right. So my initial value is b, or the y-intercept. And if I look along the y-axis, that crosses at -2. And then m is my slope, so I already have -2 as a point. I think I'll pick this one here. So I'm going to do my slope triangle. I'm going to do it opposite this time. So my rise, if I go from this point, is down 2 and backwards 1. Or if you did it the other way, it's up 2 and to the right 1. Now I did this on purpose because I want to show you what happens if you get this. So if I follow the red triangle, I have a rise of 2 and a run of 1. If I follow the black triangle, I have a rise of -2 and a run of -1. -2 divided by -1 is +2. And 2 divided by 1 is 2. So they both equal 2. So either one will work. So then when I write my equation, I have y equals mx plus b. So my y stays the same. I plug in 2 for my m, that's my slope or my rate of change, x, and then -2. So I could write -2. You could write plus a -2, but we usually don't do that. So -2 is my equation.